be used today. Please keep your hand up. If you need a hand, put it high up, otherwise they won't see you. Please make sure on the left-hand side, you also bring headsets, please, on this side here. There's still some people in the front here that need headsets. They are bringing them. They'll give them to you now. Before I can even start this meeting, I need to declare this venue as part of the provincial legislature, because this is a meeting outside of the normal building that we would meet at. So I just want to do that. Can we just keep the noise level down, please? The legislature or a committee of the legislature may hold meetings outside of the ordinary precinct of the legislature. The speaker or a chairperson of a committee holding a meeting outside the precinct of the legislature must declare the area as a precinct of the legislature for the duration of the meeting. And I therefore, in terms of Rule 56(1) and 2 of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, my sound is gone. One and 2 of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, I hereby wish to declare this particular venue. What is going on? I'd like to declare this venue as a precinct of the legislature, meaning that all rules of legislature which apply here, and this is a formal committee meeting of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. Thank you very much. Can we just sort out the sound and so on? Okay, if we can settle down, we're going to formally start. Good morning to everybody. My name is Greg Schneeman. I'm the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Transport and Logistics in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. And let me welcome everybody Firstly, let me welcome the members of the committee and also the support staff who are helping to put everything together. Secondly, let me welcome yourselves. You are our guests here today. You are our stakeholders. If we were not here, we would not be able to have this meeting. So I want to welcome all of you. And I hope that you will learn something about the legislation that we are dealing with. And we're also looking forward to some of you making inputs on the legislation that will be presented. But welcome to all of you. I know it's a cold day. Yesterday was a hot day, and suddenly today is cold. But I'm sure you will find this session very useful to yourselves. Let me also take this opportunity of welcoming the team from the National Department of Transport that are here with us, Mr. Alan Chikamvi, Mr. Muzi Simalani, and Mr. Mwako Toka. Welcome to yourselves. It's good to have you here again with us as we continue these engagements here in the province. So welcome. I am looking for the delegation from the Provincial Department of Transport. Okay. Let me welcome the team that is here from the Provincial Department of Transport and Logistics. They're all here today is to listen and to hear what yourselves are saying in terms of this legislation. So welcome to you. Let me, Mr. Bisa. Let me also welcome leaders of various organizations that are here with us. I am trying to see what I will do is, let me stop there in terms of the welcomes, but I will get a list of councillors that have joined us so that I can welcome councillors that are present by name, and we'll do that just now once they've brought that to us. But I know that we had extended an invitation to a range of organizations, from driving schools to taxi associations to e-hailing services. So if you're here representing a particular organization, we want to say welcome. We will, as I say, in terms of councillors from the area, as soon as I get that list, we'll be able to then welcome councillors formally. But on that note, once again, to all of you, thank you for being here. Let me also greet those who have joined us online. I know that there's live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. And if you are watching us on Facebook and YouTube, welcome. And we trust that you will find the session informative and that you will leave at the end of the session having a far better understanding about the three pieces of legislation that have been given to this committee to deal with by the National Department of Transport. Let me also at this stage thank the team of interpreters that are here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you do in helping everybody adequately and properly understand the discussions that will take place today. And to the sign language interpreters, thank you very much. You're always here with us when we have these kinds of meetings, so thank you very much, and we appreciate the work that you are doing. So we are here today for a particular reason, and there are three pieces of legislation, namely the Economic Regulation of Transport Bill, the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill, and the National Land Transport Amendment Bill. three pieces of legislation, or should I call it three bills. Two of them are amendment bills, and the one is a new bill, have been referred to this particular committee, the Portfolio Committee on Transport and Logistics, by the National Council of Provinces. This legislation, or these three bills that I've just mentioned, were dealt with by the National Assembly, were then forwarded to the National Council of Provinces, and in terms of the law, we are required to have public hearings in provinces around the country, and equally so here in Gauteng. And that is what we are dealing with today, is a continuation of our series of public hearings that we've been having in the province. The department will come and present these presentations through to us just now. Very briefly, I just want to indicate what some of these bills are about. I'm not presenting them, just to give you a brief overview. But the first presentation that we're dealing with, or one of the presentations that we'll be dealing with, is the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill. And this was actually a bill that was passed in September 2022 by the National Assembly. And the bill was drafted, really was put together to deal with some of the principal strategies contained in the National Road Safety Strategy of 2006. And the National Road Safety Strategy, amongst others, contains the Millennium Development Goals set out by the Ministers of Transport in Africa for the purposes of reducing road accidents, improving traffic law enforcement, improving on existing mechanisms, and creating more measures to ensure road traffic safety. And the bill also is looking at, we will be seeking to achieve proper implementation of the strategic interventions highlighted in the road safety strategy and address practical challenges. So in the main, putting it simply, this particular bill, the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill, is really looking at issues of road safety. And how do we make sure that our roads are safer? How do we reduce the level of accidents? So that's what this bill is about. I just wanted to give you a sense. The next bill that we will be dealing with today as well is the National, where is this thing? It's gone in front of me there. Economic Regulation of Transport Bill. And this particular bill is really looking at how to ensure that prices are controlled, there's better pricing in terms of transport sector in our country. It also brings in an appeals body. It also has a regulator. And it's really a bill, when the department explains it to you, you will get a better understanding. It's a bill that is really designed and has been crafted in such a way to focus on the pricing of transport, of public transport, and gives members of the public, where they feel necessary, an appeal process where they can take up if they feel that some of the prices are going too high or have been adjusted and are not affordable. So that's what this bill is about. And then the last bill that we are dealing with, piece of legislation that will is looking at the regulation of e-hailing, electronic hailing services, provides for the amendment of contracting arrangements. It also looks at the issue of driving schools, taxi associations, etc. And basically this bill had been passed by both the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, and had been sent to the President of the Republic for consideration and for assent. And the President, after having studied the bill, had reservations about a number of clauses. And so this bill was actually sent back to the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces based on the reservations that were expressed by the President. And this bill actually deals with some amendments that deal with the reservations that were raised by the President. So those are the three pieces of legislation. I thought, let me just give a brief overview, but my job is not to present these bills. My job is to chair the meeting, rather. And so on that note, what I want to do is what we're going to do, we will take a bill, the department will present. I will open up for any questions or any inputs that anybody wants to make. Then we'll move to the next bill. We'll do that again, and the same with the third bill. So we're not going to present everything at once and then ask for questions. We'll deal bill by bill and open up for questions, any inputs that anybody wants to make. I also just want to say that there have been adverts about these pieces of legislation that we are dealing with, and there has been an invitation to organizations and members of the public that wish to submit written presentations to the committee to do so. So there has been that opportunity as well. And obviously we have these public meetings as well, where stakeholders are able to come and interact with the department. But I just want to clarify and stress there has been a process and an opportunity for organizations, members of the public in Gauteng to make written submissions in terms of the three pieces of legislation. And when we have completed our public hearings, we will take the inputs from these public hearings as well as the written submissions that have been sent to the committee by various organizations, members of the public, stakeholders in Gauteng, and those will all be factored in and taken into consideration when we deal with the final submission from Gauteng on these pieces of legislation. So I thought that I should just explain that as well. It's not just coming here today. There's been a lot of opportunity and people have been encouraged to write in and make submissions if they have not been able to do so at a particular committee meeting. This is the third public hearing that we're having on these bills. We had one in Citybeng, we had one in the Hammanskraal area, and then here in Cosmos City. So this is the third in a series of public hearings that we are having on this piece of legislation. So on that note, one of the presenters from the National Department of Transport has made a request to leave early due to other urgent work commitments, which we will have no problem to do. And that is, so I'm going to hand over to Mr. Muzi Simelane, and Mr. Simelane will take us through the presentation dealing with the National Land Transport Amendment, National Land Transport Amendment Bill. So Mr. Simelane, I'm not sure if you're ready. Please go ahead. And I'm sure we'll all be listening attentively, and then we'll take questions from everybody here afterwards. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. To the honorable members present, and to our business operators and our communities that are here, my colleagues from DOT and our other officials from the other various departments, I greet you all. I hope I'm audible enough. Okay. I will just start. As the chair has said, that
sorry for interrupting. Because there's an echo in the hall,
yeah.
Maybe just talk slowly.
Okay.
Because if you talk too fast, it might be difficult to hear. It's just the echo that I'm picking up in the hall. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting the National Land Transport Amendment Bill as the Chair has presented a summary and an overview. This bill amends the National Land Transport Act of 2009. Like the chairperson has said to the members of the community, that this bill, we started amending with these amendments around 2011, just after the 2009 Act was passed. Then it went through the processing. Around 2016, as you may notice, that this bill is written B16. That is when it went into Parliament to start the process in Parliament with the Portfolio Committee on Transport and the NCOP process. Then it went through that process, and then around 2020, it then went into the presidency. Then it was with the president for that entire period until 2021, around the end of the year, October, November, somewhere around. Then we received a letter from the Speaker of Parliament, Mayor Mapisa Ngqabula, alerting the department that the bill was referred back to Parliament. Then there was an issue that was raised by SALGA and the City of Cape Town regarding clause 7 of this bill, which is section 11 on the contracting arrangement between the spheres of government, that is national, province, and local government, the contractual arrangements on public transport. So they had queried that the allocation on power and functions on those spheres, it seemed not to be in line with the constitution of the country. So whatever we're trying to do in addressing capacity challenges, we did not done it constitutionally. Therefore, we need to correct that provision so that then this bill then can come back then for the president to look at it again. So then since 2022, we've been dealing with this amendment in Parliament with the Portfolio Committee on Transport. We applied to Parliament, we corrected. Indeed, remove the clauses that we've put. In brief, I'm not going to be long therefore on this bill. The main thrust of this bill being taken back to do the rounds again into our provincial consultation to the various districts in the country. The parliamentary advisor did give advice to NCOP to say when you are dealing with such that has been referred back, they must thoroughly look on that issue only. So if you can see on the presentation slide, two, those were the precedent reservations. That is clause 7A, B until 7M. That is the clause 7 bill that we are correcting. We're asked to look into as the department and to correct it, make it in line with the constitution of the country. So we done so, we removed all these impediments on those provisions. Certainly what actually it had happened was that with the 2009 legislation, most powers and functions have been consolidated to the local sphere of government, that is municipalities. So that includes the power to contract. So it says that all new contracts, such as we have seen some of them on the BRTs, etc., for public transport, only local authorities, municipalities, have got a right to enter into contract with operators. However, now the challenge, provinces, they gave inputs to say where there are gaps, municipalities are not able to undertake contractual functions, then they want to come into that space and be able to deal with those functions. then we were giving back some of those powers back into province and national to say they can then do some of those functions in certain areas. However, the presidency then cautioned us on a word of caution that constitutionally we cannot do so. We need to respect jurisdictions of each sphere of government. Each sphere enjoys its own independent powers and function within its jurisdiction. So the upper spheres are not permitted to just come and take functions and undertake them. However, they must do so with caution in agreement with the lower sphere, like the municipalities. So if there is capacity in jurisdiction of the municipalities, because all jurisdictions are under municipal control, so province must come in cautiously and negotiate with those municipalities where they want to undertake certain functions and do it in agreement with those municipalities. Therefore, then the president said we need not even to put therefore anything also for that, because constitutionally those provisions are already there under section 100 and also section 139 of the Constitution. And also on the National Land Transport Act, section 12.1, it allows spheres of government to enter into agreement with each other to undertake each other's function. So we therefore then went to Parliament. We were working with the Parliament Portfolio Committee on Transport, and then after that, then it was presented to the National Assembly, then it was adopted, then it went to the NCOP. So we've been doing rounds, going throughout all the provincial parliament, doing marathon presentation on these bills, these three bills, as has been presented by the chair. So we grateful to the chair. Probably this is the last meeting that we are holding today from Gauteng. Otherwise, with the rest of the provinces, we are done. So hopefully, respectfully, we're hoping that this bill can then be processed back into the National Assembly and into the presidency to be signed into law. So just going into the other main, just to remind our public, our business operators, some of the provisions that were on this bill to refresh their memory. The new section that is in this bill is the section 66A, which is a provision to provide for the regulation of the e-hailing services. So that's the new section that is in this bill. So other provisions that are there, we've got an impartiality clause, which is on section 13 of the National Land Transport Act. That clause, it is trying to caution all officials to say no officials must have an interest or must undertake public transport business because he's an official, he is conflicted from officials like us who are in the offices and also law enforcement agencies. We must not have any interest or be involved because we cannot do our work fairly if we're also undertaking a business in the passenger transport service. So that provision, then this clause is just to firm up that provision. So we just to urge the members of the public and the business operators that whoever you know from the law enforcement side, it's then your onus that you need to report such people even to this committee or to all other law enforcement or agencies, so that these people can be brought into book. There is a project that's already been undertaken by the Department of Transport. They are working with SAPS to identify all such officials in the law enforcement agencies that are also involved in public transport. So they are given two choices to choose whether they want to be business operators or they want to be official, because they cannot do those two jobs simultaneously because they are conflicted. So some of them already, they've lost their jobs as a result of that exercise. So we're just urging also our business operators to say such people need to be reported directly to our seniors so that they can be taken to task. Also, some of the other provisions that this bill has was to remove the limitation of the 20% when you are replacing a vehicle. We are a business operator. We want to maybe move from a car maybe to a minibus or midibus. There was a 20% limitation to say you cannot replace a vehicle by more than 20%. However, for the minibus taxi type service, which can be in terms of definition of a minibus taxi type service in the NLTA, it says it can be conducted by a sedan or a car or a minibus and a midibus. The seating capacity of a minibus is up to 35 passengers, including the driver, in terms of the National Road Traffic Act. So now we've removed that limitation as a request from the industry, our business operators, that 20% was limiting them in terms of their businesses, whenever they want maybe to go up or they want to go down. Most practically what we've seen, the vehicle that is on demand regarding to this is the 22-seater, the Mercedes Sprinter, or the VW. So the industry, at least, those are the popular vehicles that they've undertaken to do on the minibus taxi type service. Then the other provision that is on this bill is the universal accessibility of public transport by all our citizens. So this bill is urging from national to province to local to say they must ensure, the minister, the MEC, and also the MEC or local government, they must ensure that public transport is accessible to all our passengers, including the physically disabled passengers. That is from an infrastructure perspective on the road, that it must be able to cater non-motorized transport services as well on the side of the road, and also in terms of the modes, the vehicles themselves, that they must also cater for disabled people. It must be able to cater for a wheelchair person, a wheelchair passenger that is also needing to be commuted to his or her various destination. So that is another provision that is there, that government then will need, after this bill has passed, to see how we achieve that practically, because it means some certain seats in some of the modes, they might need to be taken out so that it can make way for a wheelchair user, that it can also be lifted and be on board a public transport vehicle. So, and also some of the other provision is the branding of public transport vehicle. We might have seen usually the standard practice is that all public transport vehicles must be in white color and have the flag on the side, on both sides, below the windows of the vehicle.
Sorry, Mr. Similani, if I can just interrupt you.
Yes.
I think we are battling to follow on the presentation. The presentation is still on the background. I'm not sure who's controlling the slides, but we just need to make sure that people that are here and also joining virtually are able to follow. And the presentation is on the background, which I think is the second or third page. I'm not sure if somebody could just assist us with that. Sorry to
No, thank you, Chair. It's deliberate, Chair, because the main thrust of this bill is just on the clause 7, that this bill was urged to say department need to come and correct, and also for the consultation process. So this is what I was correcting, Chair. Now where I was at was just to refresh the memory of the public, to say these are some of the provisions that are contained in that bill. But this main exercise that we're undertaking for this National Land Transport Amendment Bill is to correct the clause 7, which we've been urged by Parliament to do so. Just to finalize that, on that clause 7A up to 7M, on what the exercise we wish to correct, Chair. I've alluded to the fact of the powers and function on the contracting of public transport arrangement between the three spheres of government. So I just alluded to the fact that that was corrected, Chair. And then if you can see the details now on 7A, 7B, all the details up until 7M, which I've alluded to, Chair. It was now to remove those provisions, to say we agree with what the President has called us to do. We are restoring the powers of the local authority as they are in the National Land Transport Act. Upper spheres like the national and the province, whenever they come to undertake a function of these others, or other sphere, particularly the local authority, then they will have to undertake that in agreement with the local authority. So that what we did, Chair, because it had something like municipalities that need to do new contracts, they will have to qualify through a certain criteria and requirement. So that were questions to say that is unconstitutional. That is not how you balance up the issue of the gaps that exist between the spheres of government. That has already been catered for within our constitution of the country, and also certainly in the National Land Transport Act, we do have section 12(1), where agreements can be undertaken. So the rest of the clauses, Chair, up to clause M, it was just consequential amendments now to make this act now really clear, to be in line with what the Presidency has corrected us. But in a nutshell, the powers and functions of the local authorities has been restored, Chair, without any requirements, extra impediments, so that the local sphere of government then can be able to undertake any transport function in order to serve the traveling public efficiently. So, as they are doing the transport planning, they are able to plan to say in each and every area or routes, what these are the demands of passengers that we have. Maybe these are the current modes that are currently there, and therefore advise the PRE on what number of licenses, therefore, then that needs to be given. So that is it, Chair, in a nutshell on this bill. So we were hoping then, Chair, as we are going around the provinces, lobbying very respectfully, Chair, that this bill can therefore be taken back to Parliament to be processed speedily, so that we can have some stability in the public transport space, because at the moment, with the e-hailing services, there is no stability with the absence of a proper provision on regulating the e-hailing transport service. Currently, we're busy with the regulations, drafting regulations that will interpret the new Section 66A on the e-hailing transport services. With a second round of meeting with the e-hailing industry last week on Tuesday, we will gazette now in September on those draft regulations. And then in September, the industry can still give us some inputs. We're working through the Transport October month to put those inputs to improve the draft regulations. Then, while watching the space on the bill, its development, because we were urged by the legal minds that we cannot finalize these regulations before the bill has been passed into law, Chair, by the President. So, in a nutshell, Chair, I thank you, Chair. I will just stop there. The rest I can take it on the questions and answer session. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Similani. I think you've taken us through this bill, and as we have listened, everybody listening and watching and viewing with us would have gathered that this is really correcting a number of clauses to bring it in line with the concerns that emanated from the office of the President in terms of the original legislation. But I want to just check in terms of this. I think this piece of legislation and the amendments they're talking to are very straightforward. This was dealt with in major detail previously, but I want to just open up and see if there's anybody here with us here at the Cosmos City Community Center. If there's anybody here who wants to say anything or make any input on this particular bill that's just been presented to us. I am going to, all right, I see 2 hands. And that's all I see is 2 hands. So I'll take number 1, number 2. Can I ask that you maybe just come to the front so that we speak from the front so everybody can see you. They also need to put the camera on too. Please come to the front. And we can speak from the front here because the cameras need to focus onto you as well. Please come to, ma'am, please come to the side. Okay. Sir, just come forward a little bit. Remember there's a camera there and they want to capture that in terms of for Facebook and YouTube. Please could you introduce yourself and then just indicate who you are. If you happen to be representing an organization, please could you indicate that as well. And then I'll give you 3 minutes to make your input. 3 minutes. I actually recognize 3 hands and I see there's 2 hands. I see there's a third person here. That's it, no more. I recognize 2 people. So there's 3 now. I'm not sure how that happened, but it's fine. But each of you, I'll give 3 minutes to make your input. Please, sir, please proceed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. It might be a comment or a question or whatsoever, but it will depend how do you take it. As Mr. Smelano was presenting here, I had a question that I'm coming from Learner Transport. I'm the chairperson of Diepsloot Scholar Transport Association. So as you were representing here or presenting here, I didn't hear anything relating to learner transport. I think what was talked about is the taxis and the other type of mode. So it's a concern to me. And then the second issue is this of, but it was not indicated, but I just want to indicate it. We are encountering some problems, especially in scholar transport, concerning recapitalization, because the taxis get recaps, and then we don't. And then I think we are part and parcel of the community, especially, I think we are too special because we do door-to-door, whereby we follow kids at their doorsteps, and yeah, it's a lot of things. And then I think, but you heard me, what I'm trying to explain. And then those are the comments or questions that I've put. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for your comments.
Okay, my name is Dafta, J-A-F-T-A, Matala, M-A-T-A-L-A. Thank you very much.
Super, thank you very much. The reason why we ask just to give your name and the organization you might be coming from is because this is being recorded. And when we deal with the inputs, when we come to finalize the process as a committee, it's important that we know where some of the inputs would have come from. So that's just the reason why. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Veronica Masumba. I'm from Diepsloot, Ward 95. Ngimelana. Member in a good standing African National Congress. And ngiyumhlali wake Diepsloot. I'm so concerned ngendaba ye ngizwile uMr Smelana la ekhuluma ngendaba yama transport nokusizwa kwabantu abane disability emateksini. Ngisho ukwazi ukuthi lokhu ngabe kuzowenzeka nini ngoba ingathi sekumchilo wesidwaba kudala sizwa ukuthi ama-taxi azobhekelela abantu be-disability. We are still struggling. I'm the one onomntwana ne-disability. Ngistrugglisha kakhulu uma kufuneka ngihambe naye. It's either ngiya kuma-social grant, it's either ngiya naye kuma-mall for shopping. Ngiyastrugglisha kakhulu ngomntwana just because kufuneka ngene eteksini, difficult, and uthole ukuthi taxi driver akanaso isikhathi. Okwesi-2, obebe nami lana useyinyathela into ebengifuna ukunyathela ukuthi sinenkinga yama-transport athwala izingane. uMr Simelane angizwange ekhuluma ngako okwama-transport. Ngimzwile ubekile ilori yavaya yonke into but angizwange ekhuluma nge-transport. We are so concerned ngabantwana bethu abampinyane kuma-school bus, kuma-van, yonke lo nyaka leyo. I'm very, very concerned. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ephraim Machida. I'm from the EPCO, E-Hailing Partners Council. I'm a driver officer there. Mr. Simelane, welcome. I hope the road is paved for e-hailing. Do we have a concern as EPCO on e-hailing sector that I think there's a big gap between you guys and the e-hailing. Now the e-hailing is scattered, it's influxed to the market. So there's no working relationship, there's no control, there's no nothing. Now you bring in this a bill now, while the e-hailing is scattered. The issue we have now is this regulation that is coming now. We thank you for that, but our industry is mess. I don't know how you're gonna do it because e-hailing is different mode of transport. It's not like taxis. There is a middleman between operators and the government. So we want you to make sure that you consider operators instead of middlemen that is killing the country. So that's what we are asking of. And for the date of the final bill, please, we want dates, all of these things, so that we can know that how we submit. And I hear you talking about disabilities. On e-hailing, we don't have such a mode transport that is accommodating those disabilities. Our community will suffer because our cars are not reliable for those disabilities. As our government recommended that we should also provide on those people. And then on e-hailing, we have a problem. You submitted about the law enforcement and all official in transport not to have part in the transport. But we have the subs in e-hailing, a lot of them. And we have a metropolis, a lot of them on e-hailing. So please, when you go back, communicate with the subs and the metropolis, all of them, check them one by one. They are influenced on the e-hailing. That's why we don't have direction. That's why we don't have control of this e-hailing at the moment. Please, our consideration is that communication from the national and provincial to the e-hailing. EPCO is here. You know EPCO, but you ignore it. That's why everything's out of control. I thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much for that input, and thank you to the other two speakers as well. Before I hand over to Mr. Simelane, Member du Plessis just wanted to raise a matter that one of the people had raised, not questioning them, but he just wanted to ask some information, I think. Member du Plessis.
Thank you very much. Sorry, the lady that just spoke now that indicated that she's got a problem with a disabled child. I just wanted to find out, is the child wheelchair bound? Is that the problem? Where is she now? Hi, I just want to find out, is your child wheelchair bound? Is that the problem with taxi travel?
Oh, okay. Une problem ye anxiety, mentally disturbed, so kwanzima kakhulu maningena naye taxini akahambi ngesihlalo sabantu abakhubazekile. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I hand over to Mr. Simelane, just to indicate that if anybody is wanting to make written submissions to the committee, the last speaker asked about dates to make written submissions to the committee. The committee section is advising me that we can still accept written submissions probably until around the second week of October. Let me give you the details, because those of you watching online on YouTube and Facebook may want to make written submissions. There's an email address, 2 email addresses, where these can be sent to. The first email address is smtiani@gpl.gov.za. Let me spell that. It's smtiani@gpl.gov.za. And I'm wondering whether the team is able to flight the email addresses, because that would help both for those who are here and those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook. And I'm sure they'll be able to sort that out just now. But let me give the second email address as well. It's imudau@gpl.gov.za. Let me spell that. It's imudau@gpl.gov.za. But I will ask Timbiso and the team just to check if we can put those email addresses for written submissions so that it can be on the screens that can be seen both by those who are here and watching online. So I thought, let me just touch on that. Mr. Similani, let's hand back to you. 3 different questions. Over to you, sir.
I will try, Chair, but this echoing did not do justice. I did not follow very clearly some of the questions, but I will try to the extent that I've tried to pick up what the members of the public are saying. With that one, Chair, of a child that has got some physical disability, I did not get as well as your member was trying to follow up to say what kind of challenge does that child has. Okay? Probably I will request maybe that Umama can maybe reach to the people at the desk so that he can register her kind of challenge that she's having with that child. Currently, Chair, yes, we do have these obligations on the legislation and the government side to say we need to provide public transport must not be discriminatory, it must cover everybody. But now when coming on the ground to the industry, last time or in the previous era, 8 years ago, they used to just remove that one chair in the minibus taxi service. That chair which is just in the front, like your quantum, they come up with only 2 people in the front. So that big space in between, the industry already had an issue with that. That already, it's robbing them of 1 extra person. So it's been difficult, Chair, to accommodate on our modes an extra space, maybe to take out another chair or seat on our motor vehicles, because our business operators now, they said, look, it's not like guaranteed that maybe every day they will have a physically disabled passenger on their vehicle. So in the meantime, then they are losing money, they are losing income in that regard. So yes, it is indeed a challenge. I think maybe if the committee will assist. In Cape Town, what they normally do, they've got a special dial ride where that passenger, they will have 1 or 2 vehicles that can efficiently provide for a service to our physically disabled community members. So then that commuter will then have to dial a number so that that particular vehicle can pass by where the commuter need to be picked up, so that then they pick them up to that destination. I think certainly, Chair, that in the meantime, it can at least assist our traveling public, those that have got committee members that have got a physical disability within them. The issue of scholar transport, it is provided for in the National Land Transport Act. And also now the other challenge that is there is the toss between Department of Education and Department of Transport. In some provinces, scholar transport is run by Department of Education, and in some provinces, it's by Department of Transport. But certainly in terms of licensing, everybody that transport for reward, he need to have an operating license, therefore also his vehicle need to have some roadworthiness checks and balances attached to it by the provincial regulators when they issue a license. So it must be a safe vehicle that is conducive to ferry our learners into school and back. Bakkies are not allowed. In the National Road Traffic Act, it clearly stipulates that nobody is allowed to ferry passengers on a goods compartment without certain safety requirements that the vehicle has been adapted for. So, bakkies are only allowed, the Act strictly says that there are certain areas in our provinces where minibus taxi types and small vehicles cannot access the area, but it can only through bakkies and vans that can access those areas. And those such areas, then the MEC need to declare and put up a gazette to say only in this area will bakkies be allowed to ferry passengers. So in all areas where you find then abomalume using bakkies for that, it's actually illegal. That bakkie must have first certain safety requirement before it can be allowed to ferry our passengers. So that one, it's a duty of us as parents as well. You don't use that vehicle, but there are so many other vehicles that Abu Malume they are using, vehicles that are for all the safety requirements to ferry our children. So we can make wise choices as parents to only allow your child to be picked up by the appropriate vehicles that are used for public transport, but not for bakkies. And also then the issue of e-hailing service, the mushrooming numbers, it is indeed a challenge to say how now do we limit that number? You know, it's difficult to do so by legislation. It is the planning requirement by the cities that the cities are doing in terms of ITPs that they need to limit. So maybe on this area, this is the amount of vehicles maybe we can allow in this area, because it will end up being like the minibus taxi type service, where each and every corner of our roads you find, or our area, you find a lot of minibus taxis just being parked there. So we don't want that situation to repeat itself on the e-hailing service side. So I've been posing this question to our e-hailing stakeholders to say, how on your side as well are you assisting government to limit the number, that then our streets are not just flooded by vehicles that are parked everywhere? I haven't had any satisfactory answer from our stakeholders' side, but from government side, our cities definitely were preaching that gospel, that they need to assist when they recommend to the PRE, when those requests are coming for application for operating license. Then they need to say for sure, to say, look, maybe in this area, these are the only amounts that are required. Now, the certain demand and supply that needs to be observed and respected, like in Cape Town and other provinces. So those are the things that we are grappling with, but as we are tightening the regulatory space on the e-hailing side, we will need to work together from the stakeholder side and also from the government side to limit, to manage that space very stringently. Chair, that's all that I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to indicate to those who've made inputs here, your inputs have been recorded, as I indicated earlier. And those inputs that you've made are inputs that we will look at and consider when we deal with the bills as the Gauteng Provincial Legislature and the Portfolio Committee. So I just wanted to assure you. Now, there's another matter that was raised as well, and that's the accessibility of public transport for persons with disabilities. Now, that is a matter I've made notes here as well, and we will also look into this, not only in terms of legislation, but in terms of accessibility in general in Gauteng. You know that there are bus companies and bus operators who get subsidies from the Provincial Department of Transport and Gauteng. And that's one of the things that certainly in one of our next engagements with the department is that we will ask them to give us an assessment, to give us a report and a presentation on the accessibility to public transport for persons with disabilities. So I just wanted to indicate it may not necessarily be entirely a matter that deals with the legislation, but it's a matter that as a portfolio committee we will certainly be taking up with the department, because we also want to get a sense of how accessible are public transport facilities in Gauteng. So I just wanted to indicate that. But the rest of the submissions, the issues of e-hailing, those are all matters that we will look at as a committee when we have finalized this legislation and the other two pieces before us. So thank you very much. At this stage, I want to just also welcome further members of the portfolio committee who have arrived. Welcome, members. We did start earlier, but we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. Let me also welcome all of those who've come in since we started. Welcome, and I trust that you will find this particular committee meeting and the legislation that is being presented to us of benefit to you, and that you will leave here with a far better understanding what these three pieces of legislation are about. I also want to welcome Councillor Leyborn Ndou, who's joined us. Councillor, welcome. It's good to have you with us, and we appreciate you joining us. And you are welcome to stay with us as long as you can. But we wanted to say thank you very much for coming to join us. Thank you, Councillor. So what we're going to do, we're going to move on to the next piece of legislation. The next piece of legislation that we will be dealing with is I want to deal with the Economic Regulation of Transport Bill. That's a new piece of legislation that has been dealt with by both the National Assembly and now the National Council of Provinces and provinces as well. It's called the Economic Regulation of Transport Bill, and I'm going to hand over to Mr. Chikamvu to take us through that piece of legislation. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Honorable Chair and honorable members and members of our community. My name is Alan Chikamvi. I'll be taking you through the presentation of Economic Regulation of Transport Bill. My presentation will outline as follows. I'll then take you through what economic regulation is, what does it intend to do, and I'll then take you through some of the components of the ERT bill and the funding model which we're anticipating to then fund the institution which you're intending to establish. So basically one will wonder what economic regulation is. So economic regulation refers to controls that ensures that there is a reliable, safe and transport system at a fair price, together with the agreed minimum service standard, which needs to then be made available throughout the country. So its sole goal is to ensure that the regulator determines the right price for goods and services, which then mirrors a competitive outcome. So meaning that where there is competition, prices are normally determined by the market. So where there is no competition, then that means that there is a monopoly, which then determines prices as they feel. Whether it's affordable or it's not affordable, they then just determine those prices in their own initiative. Then its objective is to ensure that the services which are provided to consumers are effective, efficient, sustainable, and meet consumer needs through consumer protection, service quality regulation, price regulation, and competitions regulation. Now, having said that, then we then realize that within the transport sector, we do have problems which we then need to address. So some of those problems which we then identify is that the preconditions for efficiency and cost effectiveness do not as yet exist in the transport sector due to the following. We have got potential conflicts of interest where you find an entity being given regulatory powers as well as a player within that respective industry. For an example, I'll give you an example of Transnet within the maritime sector. Transnet in the maritime sector, there's what we call Transnet National Ports Authority, and there's what we call Transport Ports Terminals. What is happening there is that Transport National Ports Authority is the one that regulates access within our ports within the port system in South Africa. But however, you then find that that very same entity belongs to Transnet, while as the player as well within that respective place is TPT, which belongs to Transnet. Therefore, which then means there isn't any fairness when it comes to allowing other parties to come into the port system to participate within that economic space. So we then realize that there's significant gaps within our regulatory framework, which then limits the government's ability to provide consistent and comprehensive economic oversight. There's also scarce skills within the economic regulation space, and there's absence of clear appeals mechanisms. Like, for example, we do have what we call the regulating committee. Its purpose is to ensure that it regulates the prices which are being charged by the airports company together with the air traffic navigational services. So what happens there is that the regulator can make a decision and there isn't anywhere where one can go and then appeal those prices which has been charged by the regulator. So in a nutshell, what we are intending to then do is we're intending to establish an entity which is called a Single Transport Economic Regulator. By establishing this entity, we'll then be able to have an independent appeals mechanisms, and we'll also strengthen the existing economic regulatory functions, and we are creating sufficient regulatory expertise, and also to strengthen independence of existing regulators. By doing so, we'll also be expanding the existing regulatory framework by addressing potential conflicts of interest, introducing regulatory oversight across the rail sector. Currently, within the rail sector, there isn't any economic regulation which is happening. We know that within the passenger space, it's PRASA that is providing rail services for our passengers. But while as when it comes to the freight side, there's Transnet Freight Rail, and both entities that are acting as monopolies with that regard. So there's a need to then introduce economic regulation then. Then I'll then take you through the narrative of the bill. So our bill, as it stands, its sole purpose is to consolidate economic regulation of transport into a single framework, as well as to establish an entity called Transport Economic Regulator, as well as an entity called Transport Economic Council. Then I'll then take you through what are those. And when you look at the narrative of the bill, it is divided into two: the issues of governance. That's where we're talking about the institutional and legal design, the establishment of regulatory independence, appointment of the regulator, the handling of disputes and appeals. While on the other side, we have got substance matters, which speaks to content of regulation, how actual decisions are made, choice of price methodologies, as well as licensing requirements and licensee obligations. So, as I indicated earlier on to say that the bill seeks to establish an entity which is called Single Transport Economic Regulator. So Transport Economic Regulator is then established by Section 29 by Clause 29 of our bill, and the regulator will be the primary technical administrative enforcement regulator under the Act, responsible for carrying out education, research, price control, approval, investigations of complaints, and enforcement of the Act. Within the regulator, then it comprises of there's a board, and the board is the one which is responsible for appointing a CEO, and then the CEO, together with other deputy CEOs, will then form what you call an executive regulatory panel, which is responsible for day-to-day economic regulatory decisions. Then, on the other hand, we've got a Transport Economic Council. This is established by Section 46 of our bill. The council is an organ of a state within the public administration, but as an institution outside the public service. The council will serve as a primary adjudicative entity, reviewing and receiving appeals against the decisions made by the regulator when an affected party applies for such a review. So that would then be another independent institution which is sitting parallel to the Transport Economic Regulator. Like I've indicated, sole purpose is to then ensure that it reviews all the decisions that has been made by the regulator. So, in a nutshell, what is this regulator that I'm talking about? I'll then take you through the application of the Act, where I'm going to go into details as to how will the regulator function and what it intends to do. So basically, when you look at Clause 4 of our bill, it then says that institutions which are currently regulated will continue to be regulated once the bill is enacted. But however, the bill then allows the minister to expand the scope of regulation to other entities, such as to other public entities as well as private entities. So, Clause 4.2 then states that the minister may determine whether an entity falls under application of this Act, provided that a single firm has got a market share of 70%, and the preconditions for efficiency and cost effectiveness do not exist within that respective sector. So, when we're looking at the preconditions for efficiency and cost effectiveness, the minister needs to then first must have found that at least one firm has market power, or a facility or a resource is an essential facility, and he also needs to then consider the outcomes of the market inquiry which has been conducted by the regulator or by the Competition Commission, and also factor in the opinion that he has received from the Competition Tribunal findings. So what does that mean then? Let's say, for an example, we know currently that we've got a challenge with our taxi fares, whereby our taxis, when the fuel price goes up, the fares for taxis, they also go up. But when the fuel price decreases, the prices for taxis don't decrease. But when the fuel price goes up again, they go up again, meaning that there is misalignment of some sort. So, as we were conducting public hearings in other provinces, this was one of the main issues which has been raised. Now, given the fact that when you look at Clause 4.2, which I was explaining earlier on, this then means should there be a need to regulate the taxi industry, should there be one who's aggrieved and then approaches the regulator and lays a complaint to say, we feel like the fares which the taxi industry is charging us is not fair and affordable, then the regulator then will then have to liaise with the minister, and the minister will then have to, the regulator will have to conduct what you call a market inquiry. Then if surely indeed they find that within the taxi industry has got market power, then the minister will need to first determine that the taxi industry falls under application of this Act. So once it is determined that it falls under application of this Act, this then means, nako e nngwe le nngwe he price he batho ba taxi ba tlamehile ba increase the prices tsa the services ba tlamehile ba apply to the regulator for approval of that price decision. Because of currently no one nyulisa price ka 2 ranta or ka 10 ranta, they are not consulting with anyone. It's just a general meeting where they go, they meet and sit and decide or no, we need to increase the prices ka 5 ranta for an example. So having this regulator, once it is determined to force under this act, then under application of this act, then this means or batamele ba it's a proposal ya bona, then approach the regulator, then the regulator utamele aribele the conditions say the reasons are setting behind implement ya price EU. Then has later then the regulator will either grant that price increment and approve for that price increment, or we'll have to go back and liaise the taxi industry to say, guys, we see you and you want to increase the prices, but the price, there isn't rationale beyond you determining the price which you want an increment for. So that is one of the processes which happens. And this process, it happens in a transparent manner. So once the minister, once the regulator receives that price increment proposal, the regulator will I gazette and then I consult any members of the public. Members of the public will then have to make comments, and then after making comments, then the regulator has to consider facts from both parties, which is members of the public as well as the respective taxi association, if it's an association. Then, the minister, the regulator afterwards will then have to publish decision and the reasons why and those decisions. So basically that is the sole purpose of the regulator. Now, let's say for an example, another example again, only issue your CV standards now. So you find the price which you are paying for a taxi fare, about 50 like where do you then go and complain? Like if the taxi industry is not treating its passengers well, there isn't any institution, government institution where you can take them to. Then such complaints, then you can then liaise them with the regulator to say, so and so, they said they were going to take us from point A to point B. But as it stands, they are no longer taking us from point A to point B, they are taking us to in between point A and B, which means that the fare which you are paying is not equivalent to the service which you are receiving. Then you can also take that matter to the regulator for complaints, and then the regulator will then conduct an investigation. Surely, if they find that misconduct has been is there, then the regulator has got is given the powers to can impose a penalty to the respective taxi industry. I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen exactly. It's an example for understanding's sake. Because the bill basically discards all the modes of transport, aviation, maritime, roads, and rail. So that very same principle, it applies, cut across all those sectors. So, like I've indicated, issue of price control, how does then the regulator determine the price control? We got a respective regulated entity. By regulated entity, those entities that has been determined for they fall under application of this act. Should an entity doesn't fall under application of this act, it means the minister has to conduct that exercise which I explained earlier on for Konova, a regulated entity. Once it became a regulated entity, then they must prepare and submit a request of price control to the regulator. And then the price control may comprise of schedule of tariff charges, fees, tolls, a revenue cap, a limit of rate of return, or the combination of above. Then the regulator will then have to determine or adjust the requested price control. I won't go much into details on the factors which are used when conducting price control. Now, like I indicated, there isn't any economic regulation within the rail space. So, Chapter 2 ya bill ya rena it then introduces what we call access to rail infrastructure. That is a chapter which specifically deals with. You'll find with Transnet, there's Transnet Freight Rail, like I've indicated. They are both an operator and they are both infrastructure owner. Meaning, let's say, on a train, on a transporter from Wheatbank all the way to Richards Bay Port Terminal. You find a whole request of Transnet to approach Transnet and say, can you allow me to use my train Elisha Malaka Aka in Kisego Richards Bay Port Terminal? Then you find the Transnet, they'll tell you, I want a space. Our capacity or user that infrastructure. Therefore, this then allows the regulator now to intervene. Should you approach Transnet Freight Rail, Bakaneta access, then you can approach regulator. Regulator would go conduct an investigation to check whether there is available capacity within the respective infrastructure which you are seeking access to. Then, if the regulator finds that surely indeed there is capacity, then the regulator will then look at your financial obligations, whether you'll be able to pay for utilizing Transnet infrastructure. If you can, then the regulator may then grant you access and then informs Transnet to offer you access to that rail infrastructure. So that's one of the functions of this regulator. Then we are intending the bill then seeks to make consequential amendments to the respective acts, which is National Ports Act. Under National Ports Act, all the functions of the ports regulator will then be absorbed by DER, which is Transport Economic Regulator. And then under Airports Company Act as well as a Traffic and Navigational Services Company Act, the functions of the regulating committee will then be performed by the regulator. Because when you look at the regulating committee, at the moment it's a part-time body. But when you look at the post regulator, it's the only economic regulator that exists. Only economic regulator that is on a full-time basis that exists within our transport sector. Then also it seeks to make amendments to the National Land Transport Act, which then means that the regulator will be the one that then oversees the fares which are charged for public functions, preconditions for determining the fees, which is stipulated in Section 28 of the affected Act, and also under the South African National Roads Agency Limited and National Roads Act, we are transferring the powers of the minister to determine the toll fees. Because currently where we are sitting is that the minister is determining the toll fees, mara ahana the necessary expertise within the department that then advises him accordingly. So the regulator will then be deemed fit to can determine those toll fees. I think under how we are anticipating to fund those two entities, which is the Transport Economic Regulator and TEC, is that at inception we will then get money from the fiscus. But however, short term to long term, we're anticipating that the institution be self-funded through the principles of charging fees to the regulated entities. I thank you, Chairperson.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Chikamvi, for taking us through that presentation. It's quite a complex bill, a lot of detail, and thank you for also giving some practical examples of how this bill can be used and utilized. So thank you for that as well. I think it makes it a bit easier to understand, especially if one is hearing about the bill for the first time. So I want to firstly again welcome other members that have arrived and anybody else who's joined us. Those who've joined us online, we are coming to you from the Cosmo City Community Centre. Cosmo City is in the north of Johannesburg, not too far from Kaya Sands, Honeydew. That's the area where Cosmo City is if you're watching online and wondering where we're coming from. So I want to then open up to those of us who are here at Cosmocity, or if there's any questions you have around this bill, the Economic Regulation of Transport Bill. It is an opportunity to raise comments, make any inputs, suggestions, concerns you may have with the bill. This is your opportunity. So let me check if there's anybody that wants to raise anything. And if there isn't, it's fine. But I'm going to start this side. I see one, sure, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 hands. I've noted your hand there. May I ask yourselves to come to the front, and again, it's so that the cameras can capture you correctly. If you could come to the front, I will come to this side after we've dealt with the questions from the 5 members here. So there's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now there's 6. And this happened earlier on as well. I recognized 2, and suddenly there were 3. But that's fine. We'll take everybody that's come to the front. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's 5. That's correct. So please, if you could just start by introducing yourself. Give us your name. Tell us if you're coming from a particular organization. If it's just you yourself, it's fine. But these details are being recorded and will help us when we come to deal with the final deliberations on these 3 bills, just to know who made the inputs. So over to you, ma'am. 3 minutes.
My name is Paula Katisi from the Association of Alexander Taxi Association. I just like to correct something from the table. On the taxi industry, we don't raise the funds when the petrol goes up. We only do it once a year. We only do it about 2 rand or 5 rand. We don't put a raise when the petrol goes up every time. I want to correct that thing from your table. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sydney Madondo. I'm from E-Hailing Partners Council, called EPCO. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. First, I've got a number of comments that I have, and I hope I'll manage them within the 3 minutes. But the first part is I seek to have an understanding or alignment from the presentation in relation to the Competition Act. As you know that at the moment they are in that particular space, and there's a competition tribunal that seeks to go in and do the market inquiry, and they've got a status that is above the one that you seek to propose here. We're saying the council will have not a status of the court, but it's something lower. But the current tribunal, it has got that status of a court, and their orders are enforceable. So there is that alignment that we seek to understand, so that the industry is regulated well and the issues are corrected. In line with Clause 11, consideration should be taken to the new kid on the block, which is the e-hailing sector. It's a two-phased market where you find that the operator is consuming an app that is provided by a service provider. And that service provider is the one who therefore determines the prices of a certain business person. So we need to have consideration to be done on that. Then there's the other one, which is called the rider, which is the public consumers. So due care should be taken to look at this unique market. Whenever you are doing something or passing a regulation in the best interest of the consumer, you also consider the operator as a consumer to that which is being provided. And you should be able to provide the prices, because they are the ones who have got the cars, they have got the ones who have got the means of production, they've got what you call operational cost. So it will be from that point of view that when the prices are being set, he who enjoys the operational cost should be put forth to make determination on the fare or the price. And in the Act, I think it is important to put other definitions, the distinction or the intertwined meaning of the word fare and pricing, because we use both intertwined. So it should be spelled out clearly in that regard. The third part that I need to highlight with regards to price control reduction, it should always encourage business sustainability and encourage investment. When price control or methodologies is being looked at, the operator and not the platform operator should be the ones that are considered. Again, due care should be taken, especially in the e-hailing sector, wherein the operator is always put in front. The business of the operator is the one that should be put in front because it's the one that has been regulated. And I'm not sure with the bill that is being brought into, does it say now all the transport sector, including the e-hailing, or people has to apply for it to be defined as a regulated entity. In terms of factors to be used to determine the prices, it is imperative that organizations, because in the absence of the acts thus far, there have been organizations that have been established already, which are e-hailing partners council. They should be able to be recognized and come forth to help and assist in the setting up of the regulated entity, in the setting up of all necessary issues that are inside the e-hailing space, because it's a new kid on the block. Most of the technicalities that are inside there, especially when you are determining or doing the market inquiry, there are critical skills that are required, because as you ask for the data input to make the pricing, it should therefore be informed by the people who have been operating in that particular space. So I hope due care and consideration should be taken to include the e-hailing Partners Council to come in forth and assist the work of the legislature in determining policies moving forward. I think with that, I thank Chair, and we hope the sooner we regulate this space, the better for everyone. There's the issue of coexistence. The regulator should pay particular attention to coexistence. We have seen at Maponyamo, cars have been banned. There are people that are dying as we are speaking now, as we are trying to put the regulation in place. We should therefore be cognizant of us moving with speed to make sure that after this, there should be a committee through you, because we have gone to the Department of Transport, we have gone to the provincial department to come in and say, the space, people are dying, the business that are operating now, by the time when you pass the bill, it means there will be a number of people that will close the shop. So we want through you to make sure that you can stimulate or facilitate that debate, or that engagement with EPCO, so that due care is taken and people are saved from frauding, as the business now are struggling to sustain themselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Sanibonani. Igama lami Adam from Tembisa. Ngizenenval Tembisa. My question is that I want to know, what does the regulator do to bring awareness to the public about taxi association, whereby they are not treating people in a good manner? And does the regulator ensure that vehicles are in good condition at all times? Because we are facing any problem with cars are damaged, our transport and stuff. So there's a need to public transport even in a proper manner for our passengers to safe and sound.
Thank you very much. Next person.
Dumelang, ya wela mo ke Bramwell Molele from Rambek Taxi Association, router elero e belonga hona mo Cosmo City. So as calling our transport le mo le re biditse today, nna re na le dillo tse le ro khale re lla ka tsona mo transport go tsena batho ba le ro ba re thusa. So as long le go no re bila thuso re tle mo and then ke tlo tšea dilo tše re beng le tšona ke lefe tšona, and then le zame maybe gore le re lokišetše, or maybe lena le tlo tshwana le ba fela ba etla ba re bitša mo re fitlha re ba fa dilo tša rena ba sa re thuse ka selo. Re na le problem, go na le maponisa a mangwe a lena government a tsamayang ka dikoloi tša star ba apara dikhaki, a ba apare uniform ya tshwana le ya JMPD, a ba apare uniform ya tshwana le ya SAPS. Di-custom tša rena di a complain. Maponisa a le ba tsogela mo Cosmos mo Balwonga hoseng ka 6 o'clock, o kry-a maponisa ba le 2 ba emise koloi tse 20, and batho ba nametse ka mara dikoloi ba fela ba ya ko mmerekong. So koloi tsele tse 20 tsela tso di na le ema mola more than 30 minutes. So that 30 minutes ka fela yona batho ba sanisiwa di-warning ko mmerekong. So, and again, I didn't say gore leponisa le ska emisa taxi. At least from 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock, people are going to work. So basanze ba respect into you, but they are not respecting that. Ka tsela e ya mo Line Park o ya go Diepsloot kwa. Every day go say 7 o'clock ba eme mola ba emisa only taxi. So ne go gola busarana maponisa le ba opara dikhaki le ba hiretse di taxi or le ba hiretse ba emise any koloi e tsamayang mo strateng na. So why bona ba kgetha go emisa taxi fela ka tsela N1 e ke ga e ke Limpopo le gona mo freeway a gona le polisa le emisa go private, and private e ke yona re di tunya ke yona re di kebeko mara ba stop ba emisa taxi, only taxi from Pitori until o tsaka Pietersburg ba emisa taxi fela maponisa ba di khaki ba. So that's why ne ke nyaka tse ba rena le ba hiretse di taxi or le ba hiretse any public transport koloi e nngwe le nngwe e tsamaya mo strateng na. So e re so disa too much, but the customer complain mo rona mo Malbongo every day le kana la check every day go sene mo ka 6 o'clock go na le dikuta tše di ema mo, go na le dikoloi tša star di ema mo from 5 o'clock until 7:30. He batho ba fella mo America le bona ba tsamaya. So e be re kgopela rena le ka se kgone re thusa ka ntho a tshwana le ewe na. So and again sa boseletsi a zanka ka re ba ka emisa di taxi at least after 8. Ke a leboha.
Thank you very much. The last speaker.
Thank you very much, Chair of the session. My name is Karabo Mate from Dobsonville. My focus today is to focus on chapter 2, which speaks about access to rail infrastructure. I speak on experience as I used to work for Transnet, rail maintenance. We have a pandemic today which is trucks that are on the roads which are damaging our infrastructure. What is government doing to speak to private sector about transportation of coal and petroleum and many other commodities? Because of, I think if government can speak to private companies about transporting coal and many other commodities, because of these trucks are damaging infrastructure. These trucks are damaging our windscreens as we're driving towards Rustenburg. Like for an example, I come from Rustenburg myself. So when we use the R24, we always take 2 hours to reach our destination. Because of those trucks, as we're traveling, they're damaging our roads due to the load and effort. So I think government should do something with these trucks to maybe give them special routes to reach their certain destination, because of it's really bad. And one other thing, they cause traffic because of, and again, they're causing road rages again there on the roads, because of we always have to overtake and then to find out that they're just driving very slow. So I think if government should focus on these trucks and maybe allow these petroleum tankers to use these roads, because of it's only that tanker that is on the road. And then one other thing, these tipper trucks are really causing damage on the roads, papers flying all over. And then what are traffic officers doing to impound these trucks, because of they have papers on their on their tippers, and they're not covered with a sail because of papers will be flying on the air. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to check if there's any hands on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 people. Let's take those 4 hands. If you can come to the front, just like the other group here. It's really so that the cameras can catch you, so that those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook can follow. 4.
Very much.
If we can just hold on, let the others get to the front. And then if you can, when you speak, just give us your name, surname, if there's a particular organization you're representing, and you've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Peter Galakala from Sanko. I'm the zonal chairperson of Sanko from region A, B, C, and E, which is covers from your Krugersdorp to Santon, Alexander, from Randbeck to Diepsloot. Mine is just a simple question. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you, Raut legislator, to come to give us the briefing with regard regulations. And Sanko, we said we want to become a part and parcel for this legislature. We want at least a road, a smaller road, narrow, to form a subcommittee. When you come and you do all these regulations, you want to be part and parcel, like a previous speaker says, we want to be in as Sanko, so that we can able to come to the community, to tell the community, to teach the community with regarding this legislation. And I just want to find out, what are you doing with regarding robots? I can see people there, you know, they are busy, like Nyaupes, they control traffics, and we don't understand what's going on there. Because when we are looking there, when we're driving on the road, see the people, the Nyaupes, people there, they're busy controlling traffic. So we are worried about that. And then what legislature said, what we want to understand about the scraping of, what do you call it, e-tolls. That's my submission. I'll come back. Thank you.
Just before I take your...
Ninjani.
Sorry, hold on please, sir. Hold on, please.
Ngithanda ukulisa
Hold on,
isihlalo uba
please.
chairman ngibulise
Hold on.
nabantu abahlezi na.
Just, sorry. No, just to the representative from Sanko, some of the points you've raised are not necessarily part of this bill. You've raised issues, e-tolls, people directing traffic. We'll make note of those, but you might not get answers from the presenter. I just wanted to alert you to that, but we've made notes of what you've raised. Okay, thanks. Over to you, sir.
Sanibonani. Ninjani. Ngithanda ukubulisa ubaba chairman nabomama nabobaba abahlezi naye. Nginesikhalo la, kakhulu isikhalo enginaso, it's i-Department Education ne-Department of Transport. Isikhalo enginaso ukuthi i-transport, sinalama transport wamahala lawo, awathatha abantwana abayise esikolweni. Maba wayise esikolweni, ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi almost mangike ngathi ngithi ngiyabheka, basinikeza i-Grab zamabhasi ezithatha abantwana zibayise esikolweni. We cannot simele izinto ezinjalo ukuthi banikeze umuntu i-chance yokuthi alande abantwana ukuthi abayise esikolweni. Uthola ukuthi ibhasi scrap ubona naphansi, and then abantwana bayastaka, they get late esikolweni. That is a problem esikhala ngayo kakhulu thina siyabantu abahlala ekuhlaleni e-Waterworks, sithola i-Grab zamabhasi kakhulu. Ngize futhi kule yamateksi, sorry ngicela bangolele abantu bamateksi, angilwe. Sinokuthi masigibela amateksi, if niyalwa nina ngomnina, please ibani safe thina siyama passenger. Manilwa ningadubulini iteksi kunabantu ngaphakathi kwamateksi, because i-safety yethu ayisekho safe. I'm the one, I'm afraid ngiyasaba ukugibela iteksi, because amateksi niyadubulana nathi ama-passenger singaphakathi. Ngicela naleyo bazame ukuthi bahlale phansi bayibheke kakhulu leyo. Ngiyabonga.
I'll take the next hand. Next person, thank you.
My name is Simon Tlapo. I'm the owner of a driving school. So since ngila I wonder ukuthi mhlawumbe or ngifike late or kanjani ngoba ngizwa kukhulunywa ngama e-hailing taxis and what. I don't hear anything about driving schools. We got a challenge, Chairperson, in industry. We don't have finances. We don't have finances. Nobody's financing us. Unlike in Jenga you got taxi finance, you got this, but on driving school sites, nobody's financing no one. And most of the drivers, maybe all of drivers in South Africa, or most, but we are like driving school, but we don't talk about them. No, we don't hear anything about them. All we hear is regulations which are imposed on us all the time. So Kubai challenge because for anything that we do, we raise the funds on ourselves. So Siyasola, please, government and legislature, consider us. Any point Uguti Tina as driving school, we don't know which department we should go if say no problems or queries whatsoever. We're having challenges. This is what I think because nobody's helping us with nothing. So please, Chairperson or legislature,
Thank you.
Molweni bahlali base Cosmo City. Igama lami ndingubongi uBhoqwana, Chairperson we Women's League walapha eCosmo City. Ndingumhlali walapha. Ndihlala extension 4. Itaxi yafikeleleka kum. Ndiva ubuhlungu ngoba kukho ababhuti bethu notata bethu nosisi bethu nabantwana bethu abahlala extension 20, abahlala extension 4 ngapha kwibridge. Amateksi awafikeleli kwabo bantu. Iwari yam kuba kuyanetha, umuntu ehle eteksini neplastiki nempahla, uyawufika endlini le phansi e-F4 le ukuya ngase kuthiwa kuphi kanene? Ukuya ngase Honeydew. Kuba kuse Honeydew or Eskom, because iphelela ngase Eskom i-extension 4. Afika umuntu enethile kodwa ebekhwele eteksini. Kanti ndiyacela legislation ukuthi ke nisilwele ngamateksi ayofikisa abantu ezindaweni zawo ngoba imali yethu bayithatha as it is kodwa abakwazi ukuyosifikisa kwindawo esihlala kuzo. I-extension 20, i-extension ngapha kwebridge. Enkosi.
Okay. I think those are the hands that we had recognized. Amongst some of the inputs that have been made are more comments about local issues. But what I'm going to do, and that's why we had asked when you speak, just give us your deed, tell us who you are, because everything is being recorded. Now, all of these, like local issues, the issues about taxi services in this area, those are things that we will pick up out of the recording and we will forward those to the department so that we can get them to come and interact with the committee on some of the issues that are being raised. So I just wanted to touch on that. And in fact, there's quite a number of issues that have been raised about transport matters in this particular area. And it's certainly something that as a committee we will take up with the department. Some of them may be local issues, some may be falling under the provincial department, but we will consider all the inputs that are major. So let me thank everybody for the inputs that you've made. And it was good to have somebody from a driving school here, because it's one of the things that we've been a bit worried about. There has been a poor response from driving schools, even though they've been invited. Communication has gone out, even in the previous hearings. So we're very happy to have somebody from one of the driving schools here, and the e-hailing services as well. We appreciate you being here. I'm going to hand back to Mr. Chikambi to to take us through and answer some of the questions that you have, that you can answer. Please, over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll start with questions was raised by Mr. Moate.
Just hold on. Can everybody hear? Can you turn up the sound? The sound is a bit soft. If you can turn up the sound, please. Okay, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll start with the question which was raised by Mr. Moate to say, what is government doing in order to address the issue of the road infrastructure which is being damaged by trucks which are moving goods on our roads heavily? So, I'll just give you, for your information, I know this one is not directly linked to the ERT bill, but however, the department currently, we have a project which is underway, which is called Moving Goods from Road to Rail Strategy. So there's a strategic framework which they are busy developing, which will then address issues of moving goods from road to rail. And you then raise the issue regarding our roads being damaged, why are we not moving them to rail? So one of the challenges which we have identified, which then STER needs to also play a role there, like I've indicated to say, economic regulation, it refers to the controls within the transport sector, ensure that there is safe and reliable transport system at a fair price, and an agreed minimum service standard. So when one would, I like the fact that you were working under transport maintenance division. I'm sure you're quite aware of the our rail infrastructure, which is dilapidated. To say there is a need for a serious intervention in order to revive our rail infrastructure in some areas. So, having given that, one of the logistics principles are you need to then transport goods from point A to B at the right time, right quality, right price, etc., etc. So, and also time plays a huge factor. Recently, our rail infrastructure has been failing us, which led to delays in the transportation of goods from point A to B. Therefore, the private sector ended up seeing an opportunity of using trucks as a quicker way of moving goods. So, given the fact that now the department has realized that there is that issue of our rail infrastructure which is failing, there's what we call a vertical separation. There's a project which is underway right now, whereby Transnet is expected to vertically separate, meaning Transnet, we know, is the infrastructure owner, at the same time is the operator. Infrastructure is owned by them, but those are locomotives which are moving on that infrastructure belongs to them as well. So meaning that there is a need to then separate the two. Probably division A specializes in infrastructure only, then the other one will then specialize with the operations only. So that is another strategy which is currently being embarked by the department together with Transnet to ensure that our rail infrastructure comes back to par, so that then once we start implementing moving goods from road to rail, it will then happen in a smooth manner. So the other ones, I'll then take the one from Mr. Madondo on the e-hailing services. We do note and your comments, and you have raised quite a number of issues. Like when we're saying we need to add the definition of fair and prices. Like when I looked at my slide where I spoke to section 11 of the ERT bill, which talks about price control, it does stipulate there to say price control may comprise of a schedule of, it's either tariff, it's either call it charges, you call it fees, it can be tolls, or a revenue cap. So those are just schedules. It depends on what is it that you are using within your respective area. So again, you mentioned an issue of us being being mindful of the e-hailing services. From where I'm sitting, currently the e-hailing services is only regulated in terms of the operators complying with NLTA. So what then happens is, there's an area which you didn't mention. E-hailing services consists of it's a platform which has been created which links the operator with the end user. Now, there is a fee which we are being charged by the owner of the, you understand, yes. So, in that case, how much are they charging you? What determines what they're charging you? In that respect, when you look at it, it's more like it's a monopoly. Because they just came up with the system, they put it in place, there's A and B, which they meet. But A is paying for utilizing the services of the middleman. Then the price which they're charging you, who's then regulating that price to ensure that it's a fair price? That's where the economic regulator needs to then come into place to say, we have identified that there's such tendencies of you are charging these people ridiculously or ridiculously high amounts for utilizing your services. So the regulator seeks to look at such issues. Hence you saw when I was presenting to say the fares which are charged by the provincial regulatory entities. It's those provincial regulatory entities that are charging those fares. Therefore the regulator needs to intervene to ensure that that price is as efficient and it's a fair price. That is one of the issues which one needs to look at. And currently, when you look at it, like I indicated, it's not currently regulated. I said earlier on to say that the regulator determines the right price for goods and services, which mirrors the competitive outcomes. Meaning that where there is no competition, the regulator needs to intervene. But where there is competition, you have got a choice to say you go to part A, like it's like a kidding, Borot. You have got 4 shops which are selling rent. One more register 10 rand, one more 12 rand, one more 14 rand. You have got a choice where you can go to Borega Boroto Bakoman. But however, if it's not choice, if you shop at Havala Fela, Eric Samroto, the Chavala can come and say Boroto Baga 100 rand, take it or leave it. Which is not fair from the consumer side. So that's where the regulator then needs to come in and intervene. So the other issue again with the e-hailing services is that you will find that most of those are platform owners. They are not based in South Africa, most of them. They just developed a system and then they put it in place, they implemented it. All those fares which you are paying, where are they going to? You find that they are sitting in America. So it's something which one will then needs to look at. Like currently you've got, now we have a couple of e-hailing services. You are competing with the taxis, you are competing with buses, you are competing with what do you call this? With other meter taxis. It's you e-hailing services. You are about 3 or 4 now currently, if I'm subject to correction. So the regulator then needs to, before they can say they are going to come and regulate that industry, that's what that clause 4.2 which I was referring to say the minister has been granted the powers to extend the scope of regulation to any other entity, market, or any public entity, any privately owned or private or publicly owned entity. So those are the issues which the regulator then needs to look at. And you raise the issue, the most critical one, where we were talking about the Competitions Commission together with the Competitions Tribunal. Surely indeed, there is concurrence of jurisdiction between the Competitions Commission, as well as the functions which are being performed by the Competitions Tribunal. So what is happening is that within our bill, clause 43, it addresses the issue of saying that the regulator needs to have a memorandum of agreement with other regulators who have got concurrency of jurisdiction, meaning that you will find for a, how do I put it, let me explain it in this way. When you look at functions which are being performed by the Competitions Commission, Competitions Commission looks at issues of competition in the country in its entirety. They are not sector specific. They don't zoom into the transport sector. However, by us establishing this regulator will then be a shoe that fits the transport sector, meaning that all those technicalities which one needs to zoom into regarding the transport sector, then the regulator is a body which will be fit to do so. But however, in doing so, it will be performing those market inquiries in this case in concurrence with the Competition Commission. Hence, we need to have that memorandum of understanding so that we can have a harmonized way of conducting those market inquiries. Like for instance, we cannot take away issues of safety. Like when we're talking about the regulator needs to ensure that they are safe. Already, there are other regulatory bodies which are performing the functions of safety. So there's concurrence of jurisdiction there also as well. Meaning that should there be a complaint that comes to the regulator that relates to issues of safety, like let's say within the rail sector, then the regulator will then have to liaise with the rail safety regulator to say there's an issue 1, 2, 3, how do we then go about it? Because in determining those price controls, issues of safety standards also plays a huge role. Like I indicated earlier on, like there was one question which was raised to say, that matter can be raised, for example, it can be raised with the regulator to say, okay, we see that this is a regulated entity. Like as I was going to work. Then you take the matter to the regulator, then the regulator will then have to investigate on that matter. After investigating on that matter, then once it finds you can't meet those safety standards, they are not in par. But you'll be doing that in conjunction with the rail safety regulator in this regard. So, me Tatisi, we note your comment. And then there was the one which was raised by, is it Thabo, regarding public awareness on this initiative which the department is embarking on. So basically what will then happen is one of our envisaged plans is we do have what we call a communication plan. So once the regulator is established, then that will then be published through the radios, television, gazettes, and other media platforms to say that there's a new key on the block, which is transport economic regulator. So because of the regulator is not yet established, we cannot publicize it to say that it is in existence while it doesn't. Then I will then go to Mr. Kalakala. I think your question is noted to say that whenever the department is developing any piece of legislation, you need to be part of it. But, I think your comment is noted, and also just for more information from your side. Normally, when the department is embarking on these processes of developing pieces of legislation, there is extensive consultation processes that they undertake. So mainly some of those publications you find them through the gazettes. So I think it would be best for yourself as well to go through those gazettes and make comments on and be part of those consultative processes. I think no. Up to so far, Honorable Chairperson, I think I've covered all the questions. There's the one which is Yamapodisa from Mr. Molele. Yamapodisa or Mapodisa na Kiki Mapodisa I miss a taxi fella. I think my colleague here is the best person who can respond to that one. Kena Dilanga Tsona. And there was that one, driving school. That's the right person. The presentation is still to come. Yeah, not me. Ne? So thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
No, super, thank you very much. As I've said, there are other questions that were raised here. Not everything that has been raised falls under the piece of legislation. There are other matters that have been raised, which we as a committee will go through and determine how do we interact either in this area, because one of the things that's come through, there's clearly a lot of attention that needs to be paid, probably by the department and by the city, in terms of transport in this area. Issues of where people get dropped off, etc., etc. So there's a range of things that have been raised. The department would have responded primarily in terms of the legislation that they're dealing with. There are other matters that have been raised, which we will, the committee section will pull those out, and we will then determine how do we interact with the department and different bodies that we may need to interact with going forward. But in terms of the piece of legislation, I think the department have covered responses on everything. What I want to do now, I want to move to the next bill. We also have time constraints. We're going to be doing an oversight visit after this. I will come back to you, sir. Let's come back to you. Let's just deal with this legislation. Is there something in terms of the legislation that you want to ask? It's fine, I'll let you then. Let's do that now. Do you have a microphone, please?
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate for the time. Just two issues that I thought are important. When I go back to my constituents, they will definitely kill me. One, we've noted that the regulation is specific to the transport sector, but I think point to note is to say they should critically protect the new entrants into the market, because with the ones that are already established, when a new app or a new service provider wants to come in, the issue of pricing is very critical, because you won't even survive the next 2 weeks, because you come in, for example, if the price is now a 40 rand or 30 rand, if a new entrance comes in, they therefore reduce the current prices to say 20 rand or 10 rand for the next 2 months until you are kicked out. So it is critical for the sustainability of the next entrance into the market. I've noted when you say the weight pricing includes tariffs, fares, and whatever, we want you deliberately to include the weight commission inside that specific, and it will help us moving forward. And then we understood that currently the buses and the railway, they are being subsidized. The other transport modes are not subsidized, and it's important that as the legislative work is taking place, that should be included inside the bill. So I thought I should raise that, Chair, and thank you for your time.
No, thank you very much. Anything from your side?
Just a quick one, Chairperson. Mr. Mod, no, you are correct to say the issue of price fixing, where you find a new entrant when it comes to a respective market, then you find that the old players which were already in the market, they drop the prices ridiculously, so that you cannot function efficiently. So basically, you are automatically kicked out, so that they remain being a monopoly. That is one of the areas which the regulator will be dealing with. Like, for instance, if you look at what the Competitions Tribunal, there is a recent case, Airlink, whereby Airlink from Rutiabonaya or Tambo to Mthatha, they were charging 7,000 rands a return ticket. But however, when a new entrance came into the market, they then dropped their tickets to 2,000 rands, which then kick out automatically those competitors. Then which then means that they are not there's no fair competition there. So as it stands, the competitions tribunal is supposed to make their ruling to say whether they are going to fine Airlink or what is going to be the amount which they are going to charge them in that regard. So those are one of the areas which the regulator zooms into carefully and in a serious manner. Thank you.
That's super. Thank you very much. So we want to move on to the next bill. And that's the, let me just get, it's a problem when you work with lots of gadgets here. There we are. All right, so we're going to move on to the next bill. And that is that's the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill. And the gentleman who was from the driving school, this is the bill. It covers issues, it's looking at issues of driving schools as well. So I want to hand straight over to Mr. Talker to take us through that bill, the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill. Thereafter, we will take questions of clarity and then we will look at how we wrap up. Thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Members of the community, I greet you all. Honorable members, warm greetings to you as well. My name is Ngwaku Toka from the Department of Transport. We are the ones that are dealing with the National Road Traffic Act and our related legislation. I'm going to be presenting the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill. Basically, it's a bill that is dealing with road traffic rules, fitness of vehicle, fitness of drivers, anything to do with the road in as far as operation of motor vehicles are concerned. I will touch on important provisions that are contained in the bill, and even though I might not actually go through each and every slide, but I'll try and highlight important amendments. Basically, the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill seeks to amend the National Road Traffic Act 93 of 1996 by providing certain important provisions. Some of them would not have been covered anywhere in the body of the NRTA itself. Some of them would be there, but the important thing is that we want to try and enhance the current National Road Traffic Act. The bill was passed by the National Assembly on 27 September 2022. It is drafted or was drafted mainly to give effect to some of the principal strategies that are contained in the National Road Safety Strategy. The strategy itself, amongst others, contains the Millennium Development Goals set out by Ministers of Transport in Africa for the purposes of reducing road crashes, improvement of traffic law enforcement, improving on existing mechanisms, and creating more measures to ensure road traffic safety. Now, when you look at the objects of the bill, it seeks to provide for the registration and licensing of motor vehicles, manufacturers, builders, body builders, importers, and manufacturers of number plates. May I indicate that bodybuilders, we're not referring specifically to those who frequent the gym on a regular basis. There are other categories of bodybuilders outside of scorers that we often, know. It empowers a member of the Executive Council, which is the MEC, to register an applicant as a manufacturer, bodybuilder, builder, importer, and manufacturer of number plates. The three groups are what we refer to as MIBs. Those are responsible for building motor vehicles, and those that are responsible for modifying existing motor vehicles. Those are the MIBs. That's the shortened term. To regulate the registration and grading of applicants as driving school instructors and direct how the application and registration of driving school instructors should be made, to further regulate the driving school industry, and to prohibit the operation of unregistered and ungraded driving schools and utilization of ungraded driving school instructors. I must say that for the first time in South Africa, we are seeing an introduction of regulations around driving schools. It has been very silent for a long time, but they have been operating. And the operators themselves, they are the ones that actually came to us to request that we should look into a possible regulation of the driving schools. One organization or association that comes to mind that was actually instrumental in this request was South African Driving Schools Operators Association, SADSOA, who has actually been working each and every step with us in making sure that the driving schools are regulated. We see the driving school industry as a very important stakeholder towards making sure that the scourge of crashes on our roads and improvement of road safety is achieved. When a driving school operator releases an aspirant driver onto the public road, we need to have surety that that particular aspirant driver is conversant with the rules of the road and the interpretation of the road traffic signs that applies on the public road. I like stressing on this part, Chairperson, for obvious reasons, because driving of a motor vehicle is an aspect which can be taught, but also when you release somebody onto the public road, he's going to be sitting in a motor vehicle alone with the road traffic sign that he needs to read, comprehend and interpret what it actually says to him. So when he gets out there, he needs to actually be conversant with what the road sign itself wants him or her to do. Ensure misconduct and criminal processes are more efficient, effective, properly enforced and implemented. Empower an MEC to declare as void all documents purporting to be a driving license. A driving license is not purported to be. A driving license is a driving license. Any other document purporting to be a driving license and it's not a driving license, that document is void. Empower the minister to appoint a person or authority as an inspectorate of driving license testing centers. Ensure the compulsory registration and grading of driving schools and the suspension and cancellation of registration by the MECs. When you look at the clauses, we have got clause 1 that deals with the definitions. There are new definitions that have been inserted and there are existing definitions that are being amended. Clause 2 and 3 amend section 3A(b) of the Act to include notice officers, reserve traffic wardens and traffic wardens to be appointed and registered by the Chief Executive Officer. Clause 4 amends section 3C of the Act by providing that no person shall be registered or remain registered as an examiner of vehicles, traffic officer, reserve traffic warden and notice officer if such person or his or her spouse has or acquires a direct or indirect financial interest in the manufacturing, selling, rebuilding, repairing or modifying of motor vehicles. This is primarily to deal with the aspect of conflict of interest that might exist in the day-to-day provision of duties by our officers to deal with the a possible impartiality that applies in their law enforcement duties. Clause 6 amends Section 3E by licenses or an examiner of vehicles if such person was convicted for a crime as contemplated in Schedule 1 or 2 to the Criminal Procedure Act, or if such person has direct or indirect financial interest in the transport services business or motor vehicle business. Clause 7 amends Section 3I of the Act, which provides for the powers and duties of a traffic officer. It seeks to add a new paragraph in Section 3, capital I, which provides a further power of a traffic officer to impound a motor vehicle if the traffic officer is satisfied on reasonable grounds and subject to verification by the traffic officer that the motor vehicle was issued with a notice to discontinue operation in terms of Section 44 of the Act, and the notice was not complied with, or the motor vehicle is being operated on a public road by a driver who is not a holder of a valid driving license, or is being operated on a public road by a driver who is not a holder of a valid professional driving permit. Can I please also clarify the issue with regard to the question that was asked, because I'm on the slide that touches on the powers of the traffic officers. The National Road Traffic Act does not provide for selective enforcement of the rules of the road. And the National Road Traffic Act does not provide for selective stopping, inspecting and searching of vehicles for purposes of making sure that vehicles are compliant and drivers are holding required documents as they are driving on the public road. It says they may stop any vehicle. And the word any, you can't interpret it, it simply means any. However, it says they can do so anytime. But the reason should actually dawn upon a head of traffic or a chief of traffic to say, during peak hours, maybe let me allow free passage of traffic so that people can get to their working stations, and then maybe institute or put in place those roadblocks when people have safely arrived at their workplace. I think maybe that is a discretion that maybe a chief of traffic can actually do in recognition of the fact that people might actually be caught in a situation where they are arriving late at work. But the Act says he can stop it anytime. So Clause 8 substitutes Section 3L of the Act to preclude a Department of State or an authority from offering authorized officer qualifications unless such Department of State or authority has been approved, registered and graded as a training center in accordance with the prescribed requirements. I want to go and touch on slide number 10. Clause number 10, which amends Section 5 of the Act and provides that manufacturers, builders, bodybuilders, and importers must apply for registration to the CEO, and that they shall not manufacture, build, modify, import, sell, or distribute motor vehicles unless registered in the prescribed manner by the CEO. There is a transitional provision that talks to the CEO that refers to the MEC. Clause 11 seeks to insert sections 5A to 5L. It provides for the manufacturing of blank number plates, supplying of blank number plates, manufacturing of reflective sheeting for number plates, supplying of reflective sheeting for number plates, and embossing of number plates. The word manufacturer of number plate is proposed to be subdivided into various categories of role players in the space. You have got those that would actually be providing embossing functions. To emboss is to put a number on a blank plate. There are those that would actually be supplying reflective sheeting. There are those that will actually be supplying a blank plate. So currently, the term that just refers to a manufacturer of number plate, but there's a proposal to subdivide those
into various categories of role players. We want to improve the value chain of number plate from production up until it is actually released to a consumer or an end user. The problem that was realized in South Africa was that the rules are not tight enough, and they end up being misused and abused by unscrupulous elements. Hence, most of the time when criminals are actually accosted by law enforcement officers, they might be caught with up to 4 or 5 different number plates that are actually used to evade arrest or detection by the officers, because after committing an offense, they simply slide off the number plate, slide in the other one, and then they are then able to get away, because the officers would have probably captured a certain number plate. The vehicle make might be the same, but because the number plate now is not what they are looking for, they are then able to get away. So we want to improve the value chain of number plate manufacturing. And there must be uniformity in South Africa with regard to a number plate. There's a proposal to come up with what is called a national number plate that is going to have identical features in South Africa. That is actually going to help in terms of identifying a motor vehicle and making sure that our officers are able to tell a right from a wrong number plate, for instance, just to put it that way. Much as the legislation says you must apply to be a certain specific role player in the number plate manufacturing value chain, you must also, there must also be prohibitions that any person is actually prohibited from manufacturing a number plate if that person did not actually get approval. We are not taking business away, and we are not saying people should not be able to make a living and fend for their children and family members. We want it to be done within the confines of the law, and we believe that it is not wrong to want to make money, but it is right to actually say make money within the confines of the law. Simple things, a font that you see on the number plate. There must be an identical font for a number plate. In South Africa or in Pretoria, we've got what is called Sochplatter. If you look at it, it is very different from a normal number plate that you see. It is written in a specific font which is different from what you see on the public road. That is an illegal number plate. It prohibits the manufacturing of blank number plates, supplying of blank number plates, manufacturing of reflective sheeting for number plates, supplying of reflective sheeting for number plates, and embossing of number plates, unless the person, authority, or organization is registered. A person, authority, or organization may apply to the MEC for registration as a manufacturer of blank number plates, supplier of blank number plates, manufacturer of reflective sheeting for number plates, supplier of reflective sheeting for number plates, and embosser of number plates. Clause 11 provides for the weighbridge facilities. The clause prohibits anyone from operating a weighbridge facility unless such person is registered. A person, authority, or organization desiring to operate a weighbridge facility may apply to the MEC for registration, and such registration may, subject to the due process of law, be suspended or cancelled by the MEC if such person, authority, or organization no longer complies with the prescribed requirements. Clause 11 provides for the manufacturing of and supplying of microdots as well as microdot treatment centers. No person may manufacture or supply microdots or operate a microdot treatment center unless such person is registered. A person, authority, or organization may apply to the MEC for registration who may, subject to due process of law, suspend or cancel such registration of such person, authority, organization no longer comply with it. For sure you have seen vehicles driving around bearing a sticker that says data dot, ID dot,
and the likes. Effective 2012 in South Africa, a law was put in place under the National Road Traffic Act that requires that the manufacturers, when they manufacture these vehicles, they must make sure that they are micro-dotted. A microdot is a minute dot that actually contains the vehicle identity or the DNA of the vehicle, the VIN number, the register number, the license number, and the owner of that particular vehicle. So basically what the microdot contains is the whole description of the vehicle. But now we want to enhance that those particular provisions to say we want people that are interested in playing a role in this space to be appropriately registered upon application. We are also subdividing these particular role players. We've got a microdot treatment center, and then there must also be a manufacturer of microdot. And those particular people, their operations must actually be done in a place where we are able to access and inspect their operations and make sure that the fitting of the microdot is done in accordance with the specific SANS standard that applies to the microdot. One particular advantage of a microdot is that it makes it easier even for law enforcement to be able to detect vehicles that would have, for instance, been involved in a hit-and-run accident. If a vehicle, because another place where a microdot can be fitted is in the bumper and underneath, and also where you often find the VIN number of the vehicle inside the bonnet and inside the door panels, you know. So a vehicle is littered with a litany of microdots. Now a vehicle can actually be involved in an accident, and you find that because of the impact, a component of that vehicle is left on the scene, but the driver then manages to drive away. It has happened in one of the towns in South Africa where the officers were able to then be able to track the possible offender through a microdot. When you actually beam the microdot with a specific light, you are able to read that dot. It tells you who the vehicle is registered to and stuff like that. That is another thing that is being contained here in the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill. We are also coming up with what we call road incident management systems. Chairperson, you might have noticed that maybe I've actually not followed the presentation slide by slide. What we call road incident management systems. In South Africa, we have got RIMS. But in certain areas, RIMS is not actually exercised in the way that it should actually be exercised. We need to have real-time responses, effective, efficient responses during accidents and incidents to be able to quickly be able to safeguard the scene of accidents and appropriately be able to guide motor vehicles towards safety. RIMS proposes to come up with various role players within the response value chain during accident times. Primary responders, secondary responders, and backup responders to make sure that we avoid what we call secondary accidents. A secondary accident is an accident that actually happens when a primary accident would have taken place. A vehicle which is not aware that there's an accident and then it comes and drives into the scene and causes a further accident. So we need to be able to make sure that when primary accidents take place, there are responses that would actually be there on time. There must be what we call a central command center that is going to collate all these calls and be able to quickly dispatch responses so that we avoid long blockages of our lanes on the public roads. That is what RIMS proposes to do. The specific provision that deals with RIMS says that when a responder responds, he shall do so in accordance with the RIMS policy and the manual. So we are incorporating the RIMS policy and the manual into the National Road Traffic Act to provide for uniform responses during accident times. I think this is very important towards enhancement of road safety in South Africa as well. One other important aspect that comes up here is the amendment that actually provides for any person who is the holder of a license authorizing the driving of a motor vehicle who becomes aware that he or she is disqualified from holding such license to submit a license to the CO, who must cancel the license if the license was issued in a prescribed territory. The CO must notify those authorities and cancellation. If a person is disqualified, you must hand it back over, and then it must appropriately be cancelled. As opposed to when people know that they are disqualified, but they still hold the license and continue driving. So we need to make sure that some of these provisions are actually complied with. I think, Chairperson, I would have covered most of the provisions that are very important within the scope of the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill, not unless if I'm actually removing, leaving anything behind. Okay, the other issue, Chairperson, that comes up is the issue with regard to emergency vehicles. They are being called upon to, when actually driving through intersections, to exercise due caution and care and make sure that the duty that actually accrues to a driver of keeping a proper lookout and observing the traffic inside the intersection is actually complied with at all times. Reduce your speed, make sure that it is safe for you to pass, and then proceed into the intersection to safeguard any crisscrossing traffic that would have been existing at that particular moment when you arrive at the intersection. But all those must actually be done within when you are exercising your duties in accordance with the scope for which you are appointed. For instance, Clause 41 of the bill, it amends Section 60 of the Act, provide that the driver of an emergency vehicle who drives such vehicle in the carrying out of his or her duties, or a person driving a vehicle while responding to a disaster in terms of the Disaster Management Act, may not exceed a speed of 20 kilometers through an intersection. I think, Chairperson, these are in main, the provisions that are covered within the
Inputs and questions all at once. Hang on, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 people. Okay. Organization you're from, if you are from an organization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Gezani Baloyi. I come from Lowly Extension 2. I came here on behalf of the ANC, of which I'm a member. Chairperson, I would like to take this opportunity to send my gratitude for this type of presentation. However, I feel that if at least you had a booklet whereby we'll be able to read, to comprehend, because it's rather difficult for us now sitting there and listening to the presentation trying to comprehend, but at the same time, there's no way we can make a follow-up. So my suggestion is, if we could be able to have at least a booklet where we can follow up and read, in that way we'll be able to comprehend and we'll be able to go back and explain to whatever constituencies that sent us to be here. Because sitting here, coming here, listening, which is equally difficult, just to listen and not comprehend. But my suggestion was that it's not a question as such, it was a suggestion to say at least if we can have a booklet of what is being presented here, I think it will be much better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person.
And we'll see the chairperson. Ma'am Veronica Masumpa futhi again ozela. Njengomuntu ophinde abe khona kwisankho yabahlali ku Ward 95 eDiepsloot, aphinde abe khona kwi-CPF kwi-side le safety. Ninenkinga la, andiyazi ukuthi ungayilawula lapho na. Driving school akwaziyo ukuthi akhuphe asebenze ngemali, mayisebenza ngemali abe umuntu engakwazi ukudrive, and then ingaba mhlawumbe government wethu kunento ayisebenzayo kuleyo nto ubhekelele ukuthi wenza sure ngalama driving school ukuthi akawakhuphi amaphepha ngaphandle kokuthi umuntu akwazi ukudrive, because most of the time still I'm talking from my experience. And then mawufika lapha kuya ngokuthi nje unemali engakanani. If unayo imali maybe 5,000 and over, which means wenza uL emotweni ngasemba, lo L ngawube umenze before. Okay, okwesibili ndifuna ukwazi ukuthi ugovernment kulama ndawo zethu zokutesta ingaba uyakwazi ukubhekelela abantu abafana noVeronica. Ngendaba ke nkingeni ngelinye ilanga ndibhekelele imali enayo, ndiyile kwi eSradom Park ngiyozibukela mina self ukuthi manikwazi ukuthola ilearners. Ndithe manifika lapha yabanisa kuma eye contact and all of that stuff, that is covered ukuthi la mali yokuzibukela nokuya e-driving school is better uma nizibukela. Inkinga ibeke kuthini mase nifika eRandburg lapho kufanele ndiyotesta khona. I'm from rural areas, remember, azange ndayisebenzisa ilaptop, azange ndayisebenzisa icomputer. And then manifika lapha u-instructor wayikhona ngalelo langa ufike wathi all of us masivula ama-computer wethu. Kuba mzukuzuku ukuvula icomputer kwatholakala ukuthi nesikhathi esibekiwe si-limited. Ndithe mandithi nivula le computer dala abantwana bemuva on abantwana baka OBE. Emveni kwaloko nithe maniqala ndithi ngizama ukuhlanganisa kwatholakala ukuthi nifailile. For the sake of that, why bekungathiwa abakhonayo ukuthi mababhale because mina myself bendimfundile your past learners easily. And then masefika lapha izinto zishintshile, so kufuneka ukuthi manje maniqale phansi ukuvula icomputer, of which bendiprepare ukubhala. Bengingapreparelanga ukuvula icomputer ndikwazi ukuchecka abo A nabo B nabo C lapha. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, nathaba ndikai what one today the plot. Now I can't nane che nane ntitade na lukise because bole wa Diepsloot bushiu dina bole wa bushiu bole wa na bushiu che foro situese bole wa na che dina che bole wa na mapose khumana chocho because the crime look is you and the crime Diepsloot voleiwa dina khatigini 10% che
Then I will lay you a deep road, Chairperson. What can I mean in a deep road? Look is a one. What deep road? Deep road, look is a one. Then, Ika deep road, Ika Gamma, what? None with Ika 113. Thank you.
Wait, hold on. Whoa, hold on. No, hold on. Whoa.
Don't know, man.
Can we, excuse me? Nana, can you just finish? Let's watch the language as well, please. But may I ask, please? Just may I ask?
Thank you.
Wait, hold on. Okay. But can I just ask, please, we must just be courteous and polite in interacting with people. Let's not try and stop somebody. People are free to raise their points. We are happy to listen. Please continue, sir. And sorry about that.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's still morning again. My name is Ephraim Machila. I'm from EPCO, E-Hailing Partners Council. Chair, regarding the number plate clause.
Sorry, just repeat where you're from.
E-Hailing Partners Council, EPCO. Chair, our challenge is in e-hailing on the number plate clause. Our cars have been cloned and those number plates have been working on crime activities. One of our drivers last week was arrested due to that clone number plate. Please, when you do a recommendation, make sure that you allocate that, and all the law enforcement cars must have the cameras that can be detected to the traffic department so that the number plate can be seen or being provided that is valid or not on our law enforcement. I'm talking about SAPS, Metropolis, all the department of Metropolis. It will help us a lot on that one. And also the number plates providers that are in town, CBD. A lot of them, I know they are doing just number plates. I don't know whether they are regulated or they just doing number plates as they wish. So that's the challenge we're having on that one. And also on the number plates, the motorbikes, the Bajaj, the cute ones, are they allowed to get that number plate that reveal to the transport sector because they have double disc, whether they are variable manufacturers to transport services because they are a cute bike, not a motor vehicle. Please let's consider that on our things. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. And I think once again, I must say, last person, sorry. Apologies, please continue.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask, can I speak to Anna so that I can? On the lessons, I want to ask you about our kids. I have a child, not a kid, a child who is a pilot. On 2020, when he finished doing his training, the lessons, it was finished when he get a job. And what I would like to ask is the money. It's so expensive to do a lessons of a pilot. And our kids want to do that, to be pilot, but we can't even afford to pay at the school, even the lessons itself. Can the government be with us? Because if you can pay to be at school, but when we're supposed to pay the lessons every year, it's too expensive. I want to ask another one, but it's for funding. I know it's not about the lessons, please pardon me. Is there any funding for young kids because they want to be pilots. And our black children who finish at school of flight, to please make them a chance to get in SAA, because they can't get jobs in SAA. The third one, please bring the cadet program back. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. It's some very interesting questions that you've asked them, and probably important ones as well. But I want to hand over to you, sir, just to respond, and then we will start to make some wrap-up comments. But let's hand back to you to respond. Respond on the ones that you can respond on, and the others we will take up as a committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the members of the community for the questions. Ideally, it costs far less to obtain a driving license, very far less. What is happening is just fraud and corruption at the DLTCs. What we like to implore to the members of the community is that whenever they come across this kind of practices, be able to then alert the authorities of this kind of practices. We are aware of those. That is why you see, of late, there's been a lot of, operations wherein traps are being set for certain of our members or our officers who are doing this kind of practices. You would have read in the newspapers and other print medias and other online media platforms wherein examiners of driving licenses and examiners of motor vehicles have been arrested by the Hawks in collaboration with the Road Traffic Management Corporation in the process of actually perpetuating fraud and corruption that is happening. I'm talking here with regard to the question that was raised with regard to people who rather put money first instead of making sure that the person or the aspirant driver knows how to drive a motor vehicle. That should not be the case. The cost is far less to obtain a driver. And even the other member spoke about when she went to book there, she actually got surprised at the fee that she had to pay. The problem now that we're dealing with is fraud and corruption. But because of the operations that have been happening, we are of the view that at least nowadays there is that element of when these people are supposed to actually perpetuate this kind of, because you need to be mindful of who is actually watching. It is an illegal and a criminal act, both for the corruptor and the corruptee. Now, the issue of cloning of motor vehicles that was raised with specific reference to e-hailing vehicles. The enhancement of the number plates that we are coming up with or we are proposing, we are hoping that they are actually going to deal with vehicle theft and cloning. Vehicle theft and cloning itself, and cloning of number plates, wherein you find that I own a Polo Vivo, there is a Polo Vivo or somewhere else, all of a sudden my vehicle has a twin that I'm not even aware of. The enhancement of the number plate value chain, we are hoping that is going to actually help in the reduction of this kind of problem. And I forgot to mention that in the proposals for the national number plate, there is going to be a device that would actually be embedded on the number plate that will be able to be read with a device that the officers will be having in their vehicle. When they are tailing a motor vehicle, they are then able to read through that RFID code, get a real lifetime or like a live feed in terms of the particulars of that motor vehicle. If that vehicle was used in the commission of a crime somewhere else, that is what we call number plate recognition system. It is not only niceties that we proposing, we also proposing things that will be able to help in the space of law enforcement as well. So if we come up with this kind of provisions, we're hoping that those will actually be able to help, not only with regard to road safety, but also with regard to law enforcement in South Africa. The Bajaj. The Bajaj is homologated by the National Regulator for Compulsory Specification as a category L7 vehicle. The Bajaj operates, in my understanding, same as you see what we call a tuk-tuk. But the Bajaj's operation is not a operation that you can say is a public transport vehicle fully fledged. The Bajaj is only aimed to take you from, on your last stretch of the trip, locally here, and they are not supposed to even go onto the public roads or anywhere where there is heavy traffic. Remember, the cubic centimeters of that vehicle can only allow it to do 70. That is maximum. Now, there are provincial roads that are actually, speed limits in South Africa, for instance, you have got various speed limits. The Bajaj can sometimes even do those. Imagine the number of traffic that is actually going to be, the numbers in terms of traffic volumes that we're going to encounter with a vehicle that can only do 70. That thing is only allowed to do 70. It is allowed to actually take you to your place of residence, maybe from here inside. It is not supposed to actually be interacting with all the other vehicles, just like a tuk-tuk. The issue with regard to the member who raised an issue that she was made to sit for a computerized learner's license test. I think that would have probably been a miscalculation on the part of the person who was conducting the test itself. Computerized learner's license test is not a compulsory. There are other centers that are actually do provide or give allowance for a physical test where you write, not on the laptop, because not all of us are actually knowledgeable with the current top technology that we see. We must be able to cater for a wide variety of our people, not only the young and active ones. And remember, a license, it doesn't mean that because I'm 55, I can't actually want to obtain one. And my level of literacy should not actually preclude me from obtaining a driving license. Regulation 104 of the National Road Traffic Regulations, it says a person may only do an oral test to obtain learner's license if he or she is illiterate, and after such person has obtained the permission of the MEC. You will remember that in the older days, we used to do oral tests. But with the desire to actually phase in some of this nice, 4IR, industrial revolution and all those kind of things, we see these things being phased in. But it should actually apply to across the board to everybody. There are those that would be illiterate. I think when you get to the DLTC, talk to either the management rep or the person who is conducting the test to say, my level of literacy does not allow me to, I can't even switch on a laptop. I request that I be allowed to use a TLL, A TLL is is a form wherein you circle the answers. You circle the answers. That is when you actually do the physical writing, and then you read the question, and then multiple choice kind of questions. So next time when you go back, insist that you are not actually going to be able to do this. Or if you do it, then I don't know, maybe there must be assistance of some sort, as long as they are not going to actually tick on your behalf, because we still need to certify ourselves that you are able and you know the rules of the road and you can interpret the road traffic signs as you see them on the public road. Chairperson, I think those are the questions that I can actually deal with that were raised. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Toka, for that for the presentation, for answering questions as well. I think just as we try and wrap up, there's been a number of different inputs here that maybe have not necessarily been specific to one of the pieces of legislation that was being discussed. And as I said earlier, we will make note of that. Ma'am, you raised the issue of pilots' licenses and the cost, etc. I'm not an expert on pilots' licenses. Maybe we should take more of an interest, because people fly us and we don't know how they learn and what's involved. But I think the point that you're raising is a valid point, because how do you become a pilot if it's so expensive? But I'm not aware of a government program that funds pilots. But I was just talking to my colleague here, Member Fikwe, and saying maybe it's something we must raise with the provincial department to say, look, is it something in Gauteng we can look at? The possibility of some sort of program that would help young people that want to become pilots. But it is very expensive, you're quite right. So I'm just answering on that. There was the point that was raised about e-tolls and when is that going to be scrapped. That's a matter that's being dealt with by the National Department of Transport together with the provincial department. And I know it's taking a little bit longer, but there's quite a lot of complexities around that. But it is going to be scrapped. So it's not going to just be left, but it's a bit more complex than what was envisaged. Also, you raised the point, sir, about these people who just jump up and direct traffic at robots. And there's a big concern about that, because they are not trained. And there's lots of questions being asked. What about the liability? What happens if there's an accident because they don't know how to direct traffic? Now, you'll know that under the Nasi Ispani program that the Gauteng provincial government has launched, recently the Provincial Department of Transport and Logistics advertised 6,000 positions. And in those 6,000 positions, once they've interviewed and taken people on board into that program, 1,200 people are going to be trained as traffic pointsmen or pointswomen and trained on how to direct traffic. Because it seems like at times the traffic police in the various municipalities are not managing. And so the 1,200 people that have applied for those 6,000 positions are going to be trained to direct traffic and become pointsmen and pointswomen, which should help us with that challenge that we're having. And one of the other problems, if I can just say, is that very often some of these people are not directing traffic because they want to direct traffic. They've got other motives behind it. They are fiddling with robots. They are disconnecting robots. There's robots that I know I've reported, and they've been fixed, and tomorrow they're no longer working. So some of them have got other motives, and it's a point that we as a committee do raise with the provincial department and will continue to raise. So I just wanted to illustrate that there were a few points that were raised here. The crime issue in Diepsloot, we'll pass that on to the MEC for Community Safety and to the committee and the legislature. that deals with issues of community safety. So, as I said, no point raised here is a wasted point. Any input that is raised, we're making note of, and we'll follow up on those issues. But I think in the main, we want to just firstly say thank you to all of you that have been here, because there's been a lot of people here that have raised real issues in relation to the various presentations that have been made. And these have all been recorded. And as I said earlier, as a portfolio committee, when we come to finalize our deliberations on these 3 pieces of legislation, we will take these comments into account. Many of us have made our own notes as well. And where there are matters that have been raised that might not necessarily relate to these pieces of legislation, we will look at those and see how do we deal with those. As I raised earlier, there's been a number of points raised today about issues of public transport in this area in particular. So we've made notes of those as well. Just to reiterate, if you want to make any written submissions, I did give out email address earlier. From Lonnie, where are you? Oh, there it is. It's on the screens. There's the email address. So if you want to take a photograph of it, you can make written submissions to these email addresses by the 2nd week of October at the latest. Those of you who are watching online on Facebook and YouTube, I'm sure you can see the email address. Thank you for putting it on the screen. Please leave it up there, because I'm sure people are busy writing this down, and we would love to hear your views and your inputs. I know there was somebody who spoke about a booklet. Just to say, that's the really reason why we gave out copies to everybody of the 3 bills and the 3 presentations. That's to enable you to go through it. It would be difficult to print a booklet before the legislation has even been passed and become law. Maybe then the department can look at things like that. But I trust you to get a copy of the bills and the 3 presentations. I think we are pretty much at the end of the session today. It's the last in a series of public hearings that we've been having on these 3 particular bills. Let me get to where I need to go to. So you've got the email addresses. Please submit written submissions if you would like to submit. I think on that note, I would like to say thank you to all the members of the committee that have been here. Thank you very much, members. Very much appreciated. Being able to listen and hear what everybody is saying. Let me also thank the National Department of Transport. I know some of your team have left, but we want to express our appreciation to yourselves being with us once again and taking us through. I think for us in the committee, we're starting to become experts because we've listened to these presentations a number of times now, but thank you so much. I want to thank yourselves for being here and for taking an interest in the work that this committee is doing around this legislation. And I think we will certainly look in the remaining time we have this year as to how we can come back to this area as a committee, because there's a number of points that have been raised which I think we should look at trying to come back to. So thank you to all of you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking the questions that you've raised. We appreciate it. We appreciate hearing your voice. This is your legislature, and it's for you to use. And we appreciate you having responded to the invitation to join us today. I also want to take this opportunity. I want to thank all the people that have been helped set up for today. The guys, the people at the sound desk, those who are operating the cameras, those who are at the back doing the recordings, the interpreters at the back, thank you very much for the work that you've done. To the sign language interpreters that have been with us today, thank you so much for being part of this program and helping to interpret to those who can't hear and would need to use the sign language interpretation services. Everybody else that's helped to put today's session together, whether it's the refreshments, equipment, setting out the chairs, making the hall available. We want to say thank you to every single person for the help that you've made and for your contribution. I just want to inform the members. Is there anything else? Okay, so those of you who had headphones, please give them back, because I want to assure you, if you take them home, you can't use them. You won't hear anything on them, so please give them back. I think they're collecting them from you. Lunch will be served out that door over there that you came in. There will be lunch there, so you would have to just queue up. There will be people there to help. Just keep the seats. To members of the Portfolio Committee, members of the committee, we are not finished our work today. We will grab something to eat, and then we are proceeding to the Hendrik Potgieter Road Bridge that collapsed earlier this year. We are going there to just assess how far the contractors are in building that bridge, whether it will be completed on time. So members of the Portfolio Committee, please don't leave us. We want to go and see that bridge, assess how far it is. So we'll quickly also grab a bite to eat, and I'm hoping by 1:30 we can leave to go that way. Stamisa will guide us. But on that note, to everybody, once again, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. If you are traveling, please travel safely. Please drive safely. Make sure you arrive home alive. Obey the rules of the road. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you very much and goodbye.